finally some actual, authentic, Nintendo-given Nintendo Switch 2 news. Yes, you've heard it correct. Furukawa has given the first information about the Switch 2 beyond it exists. So good morning, Mario. Good morning, Switch fans. I know it's not morning, but I think it's morning in Japan or something like that. They just had their investors Q&A, which is the critical part of the briefing for their investors. Furukawa has tweeted, this is big because it's him coming out and saying something about the successor of the Switch, as opposed to all of us just rambling and hoping and dreaming. Now, what has Furukawa given us? Well, it's kind of things that we knew were going to be true, but we're getting official confirmation, and as you know, and as I know, nothing is real until it's officially confirmed by Nintendo. So this should be good stuff. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Hit that like button if you like Furukawa actually giving some details. What did he talk about? Well, today, Nintendo Switch really didn't do all that great. Their hardware sales dropped 31% year over year. Their overall earnings are down. They're slashing forecasts for their Switch system sales as well as their profits. And now Furukawa comes in with his big drop, which, you know, it could have been bigger, but that's kind of how Nintendo has been handling 2024. Like everything they do, well, they could have done it a bit bigger. This is Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. Love how they have to use all of these words because they can't just say the name of the system. They can't just call it Switch 2. They can't just call it Super Switch. They got to call it the successor to Nintendo Switch. But there are three very important pieces of information for us to pluck out, and we'll talk about them one by one. First, Nintendo Switch software will be playable on the successor Nintendo Switch. Boom, backwards compatibility confirmed. It's something that has been rumored and leaked and discussed for a long time. It's something that I thought was inevitable, but now you know for a fact your games will work on the Switch 2. And it does not sound like there's going to be any caveats, so this should be both digital and physical games playable on the Switch 2, which is great. That is a huge, obvious, but important step for Nintendo to make sure they have a successful transition. The software library that you've built up over the last 7.5 years, you can bring it along with you. You do not need to keep your Switch if you choose not to do so. If you want to trade it in for a Switch 2, if you want to sell it for some money, if you want to give it to a little brother, you can do all of that as you progress towards your successor to Nintendo Switch. Doing anything but backwards compatibility was going to be a humongous miss for Nintendo. So like I said, this is kind of obvious, but getting official confirmation from Furukawa is interesting. And I think that if you want to read between the lines here, what he's saying is going a long way at showing what we've known to be true, or believed to be true, that the Switch 2 is going to be a true successor in the sense that it's just a more powerful Switch. When we read what Furukawa discusses here and emphasizes, it's basically telling us that this is a better Switch, but it's still a Switch because everything is transferring over. And that continues with his note that Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. And this is something that we also assumed for a long time. We knew that Nintendo accounts would carry over. That's the only thing that's officially been confirmed before this, by the way. Like, we assumed games and online would carry over, but the only thing that Furukawa has said is that Nintendo accounts would carry over. NSO has been incredibly successful for Nintendo. I think they announced they're at like 35 million members. Pretty darn good. The service has definitely grown and evolved to a place where I think it's more than worth it at its $20 price point. And if you get the expansion pack tier and you play either Mario Kart or Animal Crossing or Splatoon, probably worth it as well, or if you're a huge N64 aficionado. But now we know that NSO will carry over. That most likely means that your subscriptions will carry over. I personally don't anticipate a price increase for Switch Online. I think Switch Online will be Switch Online. That way, if you're a player who stays on Switch 1, you pay the same price as if you're someone who goes to Switch 2. You pay the same price as if you're someone who plays on both. You could definitely have a Nintendo Switch family membership where your kids are on the Switch 1 and you're on the Switch 2, or vice versa. I like this. I think it would, again, be absolutely foolish if it was not the case. Nintendo has finally kind of found a foothold in the online space. They've finally done it right. They've finally modernized. Do they do it perfect? No. But the online play has been much more successful, much more consistent. Ever since Monster Hunter Rise came out and they sort of upgraded their servers, we've seen really strong online play. They've got their missions and rewards, which I think could be improved. Obviously, the eShop needs a huge improvement, but Switch Online does not mean that it's going to be the exact same thing. It just means that the service, your plan, and I believe and hopefully the price will carry over. Now, the third thing that Furukawa said here is that further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. Now, that might sound like a throwaway statement, but I think it's interesting because he could have just said further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch will be announced at a later date. But Furukawa is a smart cookie, and he including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch. Now, why did he put that in there? What is important about the Switch successor's compatibility with Nintendo Switch? To me, you only say this if it's a positive, right? You're not going to advertise a negative. So to me, I think this is hinting at one of two or both things. One, a transfer process between Nintendo Switch 1 and 2, getting your account, getting your online, getting your game licenses, getting your save data, getting everything over to Switch 2. Inevitably, there will be some sort of transfer app or some sort of silly Nintendo branded thing with Mario running across the screen and gathering coins and stomping Goombas to watch as you move your data from Switch 1 to Switch 2. Now, the other thing it could be hinting at, and something that I do believe will be discussed, is accessory compatibility with Switch 2. And this is something that I think is going to be interesting because we all expect them to change the Joy-Con for this time around. The biggest new thing we know about Switch 2 besides hardware power is a magnetic rail for the Joy-Con as opposed to the slide and click that we have on the current Switch model. But will today's Joy-Con be compatible with the Switch 2? Maybe they can't slide on, but I surely believe that every controller you have for Nintendo Switch 1 can wirelessly connect to Nintendo Switch 2 or can connect via USB to Nintendo Switch 2. And I have to imagine when he's talking about compatibility with Nintendo Switch, he must be discussing accessories as well. They've talked about games carrying over, they've talked about online carrying over, they've talked about Nintendo accounts carrying over. What's left? Accessories carrying over. Outside of that, not much to carry over unless, they're going to give you a free Switch 2, which we know they're not going to do that. eShop currency should carry over. Downloads will carry over. Accessories should carry over, and I think that's what's being discussed here. Now, none of this is the awesome information that we desired. Everybody wanted a trailer, everybody wanted a photo, everybody wanted a name. The two things that I thought Furukawa could give us, either a name or a release window, have not been given. Furukawa instead opted to go a different route by really cementing the connection between the two platforms, and I think that's interesting but important. Sure, it would be more fun if we got a launch window, but we know that Nintendo has not changed plans in regards to revealing this thing by the end of the fiscal year. That means it's going to get announced before March 31st, 2025. Probably won't be announced till 2025, as this year seems to be out the window. October is past, the investors' call is now passed, and barring some crazy Game Awards announcement, I just don't see this thing getting any airplay until 2025. Could Nintendo do it in January? Yes. February? Sure. March? It's possible. But note that Furukawa could have given a name, a date, or just said more information at a later date, but he wanted to emphasize the connectivity and the transition. Remember, that's something we always talk about that's so important in Nintendo. They want to maintain the audience that they've grown so big with Switch 1 over to Switch 2. Maybe they'd like to add some new players that previously want to play higher powered, better graphics games on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, but they definitely want to carry over and bring with all of the audience that has helped support Mario Kart get to 65 million copies, the Switch get to 145 million units, so on and so forth. And by announcing and confirming backwards compatibility, NSO compatibility, and whatever other compatibility with Nintendo Switch he's mentioning, most likely accessories and data transfer, he is cementing that yes, the Switch is not going to be a brand new crazy thing as we've done before. It is going to be a follow-up. We're staying consistent, we're staying in line, and you can trust that. And because the Switch is so successful, Switch Online has been a nice success for Nintendo this generation. It does assure the investors okay, Nintendo's on the right track, they're going to put out another new Switch, and most likely it'll succeed just like the current Switch has. So I think this was a low-key announcement, but an important one, and one that will boost and benefit Nintendo in terms of confidence from its investors, and will leave us very, very curious to find out what the system is called, when it's going to be announced, and what all it has in it. But at least your Switch library that you've built up is safe, at least your Switch Online subscription is safe, and most likely all of your accessories, Joy-Con, Pro Controllers, etc. are safe as well. I think that's pretty cool. Like, it's official Switch 2 news. I told you we'd get some. It wasn't a trailer. It wasn't Mario 3D 5.0. It was backwards compatibility, NSO compatibility, and a tease to accessories. What do you think of this? Are you at least excited that we got something? Furukawa gave us something. I'll let you know if anything more develops, but for right now, I think this is the Switch 2 info we're getting for 2024, which in the grand scheme of things, very disappointing. I did not think 2024 would end with this being all the info we got on Nintendo's next system, but at least the successor is being mentioned, at least it's being discussed, and at least we know the bare bones foundation of its features, so I think at least it's been fun. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce, out.